Well, let me ask you this. Are you a fan of pain or change? I mean, sometimes change itself can be painful. Well, if so, you're not alone. There are so many things going on right now in life. Back to school, back to work, dropping kids off at college, watching them drive away. There's a whole lot going on. And for some people, writing about the changes can be the salve to ease the pain. Today, you're going to hear about what to say to help you decide if what you're writing or sharing is too vulnerable or too personal. And you're going to also hear about a surprising natural relief for anxiety and why feeling scared and anxious before change, during change, after change is normal, natural, and healthy. If you're feeling sad or uncertain, good. That means you're normal. Hey, I'm Hillary Baggett, host of Hill Talks Momentum in Midlife. As an occupational therapist turned entrepreneur after 50, I am on a mission to connect, motivate, and inspire women over 40 to know that no matter what is going on in your body, mind, spirit, or business, you can reach for that dream and know you are not alone as we create the Women's Midlife Network. So, welcome to Kathy Garland. She is a friend, a colleague, a published author, and professor. And we're going to unpack the major barriers to writing and sharing our personal stories while protecting the people that we care about the most. And whether you have a book in you or you want to just write a blog, some of these tips might apply to you in other areas of your life, not just about writing. You know, right now, the transitions back to school, back to work, dropping kids off at college, watching them drive away. It's a time of saying goodbye, of saying hello to new chapters, seasons in life. And if we write, sometimes that can help us make our transition a little bit easier. She shares a lot. Enjoy, and welcome, Kathy. And welcome, Kathy Garland. So glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Hillary.
Well, I am just so thrilled that we get to really discuss more about navigating the change and how you express yourself through writing. And so let's just dig right in.
Okay.
All right. So when we talk about writing, and I know there are many women out there who want to write a book and share their story, and they don't know where to start. And I think then, what's the hardest part for you of writing from really an authentic space?
I think from the beginning, the hardest part was knowing what to share just for my own personal self, and then what to share for what my sister calls public consumption. And I didn't realize that until I had made a mistake that I didn't want to be public. So I called my sister and I told her about it. And I remember I was just like bawling in the airport because I was so embarrassed. And she said, Kathy, she said, you need to write about it. But at this point, I had the blog, and so I have a personal blog, and I also have the community blog, Navigating the Change. And so she'd read some of that. And she was the first person to tell me, she said, but you just need to write it for yourself to get it all out, not for public consumption. The public doesn't have to know this particular part of your life. And I was like, oh, I had never thought about that not everything I write has to be for people to consume. And especially in this, day and age in the 21st century where we do so many things to let people in. I think that's an important thing to remember. Like, not everything is for social media, and not everything is for, just the public to need to know.
Well, I think that's really wise. And you have to protect some of your story and some of yourself, that not everyone has the right or privilege to get to know everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you are going to decide to share something, what I had to learn is there has to be a greater purpose for that. So I have a rule for myself. And again, because I have a personal blog and this community blog, the rule for myself is that I never share anything unless I think it's going to help someone else. And I know that seems like kind of broad, but you'll know like within your own body, like response, if this really is going to help like society or a greater, community, or if it's just something you should, keep close to the chest.
Okay. So you have your personal blog, and then you
Mhm.
have your community blog, Navigating
Right.
the Change. And that aim is really to help other people. And you also welcome other women to share their stories so that they're getting their story out. Is that
Right.
correct?
That is correct. The whole purpose of navigating the change is exactly what you said. What I noticed when I started going through perimenopause is that there was no place for women to just kind of like talk about what's going on. And not necessarily so that you can always get answers, right? Because I think we know as women, or it used to be this way, right? We used to have like these women's circles, no matter your gender, ethnicity, or anything like that. Women used to get together and kind of like for community, even if it was just right to gossip or just to share good news or bad news or whatever. We used to get together, and I think nowadays we don't have a lot of that. And even if we do get together, sometimes we're still kind of surface level, right? We're not really saying like what the thing is. Yeah.
True. And it's hard with a lot of these perimenopause symptoms and
Mhm.
postmenopausal effects and all the changes. Some people have even said to me, how can you write about that and share it? And it's really so that other women know that they're not alone. Their
Right.
story does not have to look like or sound like mine,
Right.
but everyone has a story, and there's value
Absolutely.
in sharing that.
Absolutely. And what I've learned is also in sharing, there's not been one story on navigating the change that another person hasn't come in and said, either like a me too, oh, I had that too, and I didn't know, or whatever. Or sometimes the response is, even if they haven't experienced that one thing, there's this like nurturing, right? But this innate, like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that you are going through this. And thanks for sharing, right?
There's so much gratitude. I know the
Right.
pieces I've written, people are definitely, their interest is piqued, and we all live in different places and have these different perspectives and experiences.
Right.
So I love that you're giving women like me and others,
Yeah.
to share. And it doesn't matter, like you said, your skin color, your background, whatever your orientation is, there's a story in you, and someone else will benefit from you sharing it.
Absolutely.
Well, you may have already answered this question, and it's about how you distinguish what you're going to write authentically and the tell all part. Are there some specific kind of rules? I know you said if it helps other people, you'll put it on community, but then your next book that's coming out is deeply personal.
Right. So I will maybe I'll use that as an example. So I do have a book coming out called In Search of a Salve, and the subtitle is shocking to some people, but it's Memoir of a Sex Addict. And so actually that's a great place for me to give this example, I think. Because I took about 9 years to write that book. And it's because I kept shifting the focus. One title, it was going to be codependent because I just read Melody Beattie's book. And so I changed everything and, wanted to show like, oh, how I was codependent and who the people I was being codependent with. Right. But anyway, it went through all these various iterations. And the reason why was because I was trying to protect my image, because I'm a professor. I don't want to say public figure like the president or something, but whatever you think comes with professor is that, right? So what kind of a professor is going to come out with sex addict in the title? But I had to decide that it is okay because I know this book was bigger than me. And even the subtitle is bigger than what it sounds like. So even Sex Addict is the subtitle. This book talks about mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. It talks about trauma and gives a really great in-depth look at the difference between like big T trauma and small T trauma, like the things that we kind of ignore as trauma, which can lead to addictive types of situations, right? So the other part to this is I knew that even though I have sex addicts, it's no different actually than like drug addict or any other substance abuse or gambling or food addicts. So I had to make that decision that it's going to be okay. And again, so it all leads back to this, right? It's still going to help people. And I know it's going to help like women, which is my main focus, so that we can begin to kind of like heal these things that, especially in our generation, I want to say, I'm not sure what but I'm Gen X. And so I was taught to suppress everything, like face nothing. But then, after 20 something years of suppression, like something has to give, right? So in that, this very roundabout way of saying this is that I know that this is going to help people, and specifically women, in learning how to stop suppressing, how to have some healthier coping mechanisms, and kind of how to heal from the inside out so that you can be a better version of you.
Well, I think that's really important to be authentically you.
Right.
And certainly be aware of when you're writing and sharing something deeply personal, it can feel like walking down the street naked.
Right.
And people can change how they look at you, but knowing that you're serving a greater purpose in getting that information out there. And once people know about codependence and that addiction is addiction is addiction,
right.
It just has different outfits, basically.
Right.
Then it gives
that's a good way to put that.
And, it's true. Some people think, oh, well, I don't have that addiction. I just have this one. It's like, you're seeking that same feeling, scratching that itch, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we have I don't want to get stuck here, but I have to add this point. So we have what are called acceptable addictions, like things that if I told you I was a drug addict, then you would be like, oh, okay, sure. Or if I told you I had a gambling problem, you would have, a little bit of empathy or something like that. But then we have those that are kind of like marginalized addictions that, like you said, we try to act like they're different, but they're absolutely not.
Well, that language is really great. And I think we're in a time where there has been so much othering of people and saying, no, I'm not like you and you're not like me. But you got to look that underneath all these clothes, we are people, we have skin, we are human, we have feelings. A lot more people struggle with mental health than they feel safe to share or talk about. That's why we are brave to share some of our challenges with mental health. And that's one of the reasons I like talking to you is because you're, one, eloquent, and you're able to speak and write the words to help so many other people. And in this Women Supporting Women series, it's just essential. So I'm especially grateful.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm going to move on to my next question then.
Sure.
I wanted to give you a minute on that, but didn't want to get
right.
I'm like, whoo, everybody
let it breathe.
A little breather. Everybody can exhale a little bit. How do you maintain the boundaries as a creative nonfiction author? Because you are very creative. And I know you said that between your personal life and what you've had to do to make changes, but it's still like, how do you protect yourself? Maybe is the question.
So I think there's a question in there about protecting myself, but also protecting others around me, right? Because um, I am married and I've been married for this will be our 27th year this year. And I have two adult children, 24, and the baby is almost 22. So it is a bit challenging to write from a place of authenticity, um, while including my husband and my daughters in some stories. So I think I'll go back to navigating the change, right? For that blog, I had to make a crucial decision, which I think I may have spoken about before. So I'm going to speak kind of bluntly. But I experienced some vaginal atrophy, and I wasn't sure, which is common for perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, right? But it's not something that we really talk about. Um, but I wanted to maintain this authenticity on my blog. Like, it's okay, right? It's okay to say those words, to say I have vaginal atrophy. Like, look, nothing blew up. We're okay.
That's right. That's right.
And so I ended up writing this piece and I didn't tell my husband about it. He knows I have this blog, but I didn't tell him about it. But I did like a kind of a racy intro to this piece about having vaginal atrophy. But then I ended up rolling it into my gynecologist appointment, which was super helpful. And then I gave like points about what you should look out for and all of that. But it was that beginning part that I had to decide, am I going to like reveal something that's happened in the bedroom or not? And I did, and it was quick. I think it wasn't, and I think it was semi-tasteful. I don't think it was.
It was tasteful. I can attest to that. I read it. It was, but I think that's an important part to say is because and I don't remember the exact wording, but
yeah.
painful sex is one of the ways women realize that they have vaginal atrophy because it's the dryness. It can feel like glass or sand. And it's no joke painful.
It is horrible.
Too many women stop having sex instead of getting solutions and looking into.
Right. Or worse, they don't stop having sex. They keep having it and do it in pain. And so I had to kind of make that decision, but about the boundary part. So in that particular piece, like I don't think I ever say my husband's name on that blog. So that's one thing. I just say like my husband. I don't give him a fake name or anything like that. And it's okay with that type of writing because it's so quick. You wouldn't want to, in a longer piece, have to keep saying my husband, my husband, my husband, though. So you would have to use like a pseudonym or something like that to cover your spouse's identity by law too. So that's one way. And I kind of do the same thing with my children. I rarely say their names on the public blog and just kind of say like my younger daughter or my oldest daughter. And there have been times when I've wanted to write something specifically about my youngest daughter, and I ask her first, is it okay if I tell the world, because a blog is international, about X issue? And she's usually like, yeah, because she kind of has the same sentiment that I do, that, yeah, if it's going to like help somebody, then go ahead and say that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's super helpful because just by speaking up and speaking out, you are breaking down those barriers for all of us to have conversations to benefit not only our peers. I just turned 53 this week, but also for our children and our adult daughters or sons, because this information pertains to anyone who is a woman and or who likes women. Right. And so there's a large population that it's really applicable. So thank you for that so much. Well, sometimes even just bringing up those topics makes me, a little steamy, sweaty, like how's this going to go? But we did it. And I think it's okay for people to know sometimes it's not comfortable for some people to talk about these things, but it's also okay that other people are willing.
Right. Yeah, because I'll tell you what, everyone doesn't want to talk about them, but everybody wants to read about them.
That's true. That's true. And we always give people the option to, use a pseudonym if you need to,
Yep.
um, and have that freedom, because sometimes getting the story out there is more important than keeping it hidden and inside.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I know that you have actually kind of some fun facts. And because we're talking to women, we all have our quirks, right? And so, just to break it up a little bit, there's
Sure.
some advice that changed for you. And I'll ask you, what is the one thing that really was a game changer for you through perimenopause?
Yeah. So because I'm a storyteller, I'm going to tell this story, but ashwagandha, you can look it up. Has saved my entire life. And I would say the lives of everyone around me as well. So I want to say 2 years ago. So it was, 2021. My husband and I were going to Costa Rica. And we had planned this trip for however long. And the night before, like 3 in the morning, I had gotten a text to say your flight is canceled and you won't be able to fly until whenever. So we had to, whatever we had to do with that flight, and then like book another flight so that we could leave because we had an Airbnb we had to arrive for and blah, 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 all these things, right? And I was like so calm. And something else happened that morning at the Starbucks. I had to, like, my sandwich was cold. And I was just like, oh, this is crazy. Like, oh my goodness, can you reheat my sandwich? Can you reheat it? It's still not warm. And I'm just like super calm. And finally, when we got to Costa Rica, I was like, I am way too calm for all of these things to be happening. And so I looked on my probiotic. I had started taking a probiotic about a month before, but I got the one that said plus mood because apparently people around me had said I was acting a bit not nice.
Well, that
Some
happens when your hormones are going crazy. Yes.
I was like, what? Okay, I believe you guys. So I got this probiotic. It said plus mood. And when I read what the plus mood was, it was ashwagandha was added to it. And
Wow.
so, yeah, as soon as I got home, when we got home from that trip, I started noticing it you know how that happens. So I drink an ashwagandha tea right before bed. It helps me to calm down and sleep because I also had experienced in a little bit of insomnia where I would wake up at like 3 in the morning. So, but ever since I started drinking that tea, nothing. My youngest daughter is an organic farmer. And so she's studying to be an herbalist. And so she like actually got the ashwagandha root and did whatever in the air fryer and ground it down and created a tincture. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. But
Wow. A
you
little
don't
shout
have
out
to,
to her.
right? Yeah, shout out to my youngest organic farming baby. But you don't have to do all that. You can probably go to any health food store and just look in like the little aisle. You can find a tea, you can find a powder, and you can find a tincture, but it will help you.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
really great advice and sharing, because anxiety is one of the number one complaints of women going through the transition. And honestly, some of it's based on hormones,
Yeah.
and some of it's based on we don't know what's happening to us
Yep.
and we don't feel like ourselves.
Yep.
So I love that you've got that accessible ashwagandha recommendation for us.
Yeah, and I want to add this too, just to circle back to what I said earlier. So I've always had anxiety, but I didn't realize it until I started writing the book that's coming out, and also until I hit perimenopause. Because whatever you have, if you haven't resolved it, it's going to be like 10 times worse. So
It is true. And a lot of us are not aware of it until it becomes kind of that rumbling volcano.
yep.
And then, the volcano of mama just kind of explodes for some of us.
Yep.
And it does take that time to pause and get your stuff worked out. And if you need professional help, get a therapist. If you need a marriage therapist, go there. If you need a neurodivergent specialist like I did, then
Yep.
go to that person.
Yep.
And I love it that you just keep saying, hey, we're just talking about it like women have these conversations every day,
Right.
because it's coming and there's more and more information. There's more people speaking out, and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really great. Good. Wow. Well, kind of a little fun, quirky fun fact about you. You have a very steadfast rule, and I think it's a very healthy boundary. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Absolutely. I will absolutely not drink after or eat after anyone. You know how somebody like hands you a cup or something like that, like, here, taste this. It's so good. I'm like, nope. If you've already had it, I will not. Now, if the person just brought it to you and there's a straw or something, I will sip and taste it before you, but I will absolutely not drink or eat anything after anyone. And this is a no exceptions rule. Not my kids, not my husband. And my husband jokes about it. He's like, all the stuff we do, and you don't want to drink after. I was like, I don't care.
That's right.
I don't care. No.
You forget your toothbrush, you can use your camping toothbrush, which is your finger, right? You don't need to use
Right.
mine. I mean, some spaces
Yeah.
are sacred.
Yuck.
We got to do that. That is super, super fun. Well, I know I had some super kind of funny, quirky questions for you, but
Sure.
how's your time doing? Do you have time for a few?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I always have time for you, Hillary.
Oh, you're so great. Well, I appreciate so much about you, and the goal is not to make you cry. So I'm going to skip over some of the more serious topics, because
Okay.
we've already talked about all the kinds of addiction and mental health and anxiety and perimenopause. So we're going to lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
And what is your favorite word?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite word. I don't I don't know.
Oh, it's okay. As a
Yeah.
writer, you might just have too many favorites.
I might have too many favorites. I'm trying to think if I actually have a favorite word. I feel like I may have, but also I feel like perimenopause is blocking that part of my brain, right?
That's okay. I was picking behind you for listeners. I can see a great painting behind you that has love in some great swirlies, and the O is two hearts, and it's
Yeah,
a black and a red heart. So how about if we choose that today?
sure, love. And I can tell you a quick story about that too. I had that's actually, I think they have these everywhere. There's like those paint and sip places where you bring your own libation. So I actually went on Valentine's Day with my oldest daughter. And because I'd noticed that we needed to spend like more time together. And I'd asked her if it was okay if we scheduled like once a month. And that was one of the times when we went, yeah, and hung out together. And it's so funny because we forgot it was Valentine's Day and there are all these couples in there. And she's like, well, mommy, I think this was the wrong day to come. I was like, it's fine. We love each other.
Absolutely. And that's important too, because when you're navigating the change of perimenopause, you're
Yep.
also navigating your children growing up, moving out,
Yep.
not getting as much time with them. And you have to be intentional about navigating these changes
Yep.
and getting them on the calendar. So I love how intentional you are about that. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Well, do you have a least favorite word?
I don't know if I have a least favorite word either. That's so funny. I'm not sure. I think because I like to write, I think I like all words. I think that's what I'm going to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're the first person I've asked that question to that has not had one. There are
People have,
people,
they have least favorite words.
they do. Usually it's like a curse word, or for some
Oh,
it's moist. For
oh.
some it's right.
No, I actually like all words, and I actually have a bit of a potty mouth, so I think that's why like curse words are not a big deal to me either.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I like all words. They're all used.
Well, that's right. Well, as an inclusive writer and person,
Yeah,
then that suits you. So I love that.
yeah.
Let's see. Is there a profession other than your own
Mhm.
that you would like to attempt one day? Because we know as women over 50, you can have a whole new career path. You
Yeah.
can open up a community, a membership. You can start a new blog. You can write and publish books. You can do all the things.
Yeah, you know what I would want to do is open up an independent bookstore. And I always, this is so odd because I just told my husband this, that what I would want to do is open up an indie bookstore, and then the whole focus would be indie authors, because I think that independent authors are a lot of times treated pretty trashy, as if like their work doesn't matter because it wasn't published by the big five. And I don't even know if bookstores know that they act like this, but they kind of do, in my experience, without asking you a question or knowing who you are or anything. They just assume that your book, because it's self published or something, then it just must be awful. So, in my world, I would open up an indie bookstore, and every weekend I would schedule a self published author to come in and promote their book some type of way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I can see that happening for you. So I know that you said it to your husband and you said it to me and you've said it to all the listeners. So
Yeah. So
that
now I got to
means
do it.
that means it's coming. You're starting with
Yeah.
seeds, focusing on the book launch, and then
And then
after.
I will open this bookstore. Yes.
There we go. There we go. Is there a profession that you are so thankful you will never have to do?
Oh, I don't know. Anything in the medical field, I think. I'm very squeamish.
Okay.
Yeah, when it cut, like if you cut your finger and said, "Oh, I'm bleeding," like even you saying out, I don't even have to see it, and my stomach starts to hurt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another quirky thing about me. So I can't imagine, like it was terrible, like having the children when they were little. Because if anybody has to vomit, or I'm just like, somebody else take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's okay. You've got all of your other strengths.
Yeah.
And it's important to know of like, hey, you got this one?
Yeah, I can't do that. That might go along with the not drinking after people thing too.
Okay. Yeah. A little bit of a germaphobe.
A little, yeah, maybe just a small,
Okay.
small bit.
Well, good. Well, I've had such a ball talking to you, and I love how you support women. And so, women supporting women and navigating the change.
Yeah.
And you want women to know that they could submit for you, and you have a way to do that. How would you like them to contact you?
So I would say to just email me. Well, there are two ways. You can either go to the website, which is navigatingthechange.com, and there is a submit button right at the top. So that's pretty easy. And it's linked to my email, so not a big deal. Or you can just email me directly at navthechange@gmail.com.
And you've shortened it. So it's just NAV, the
Right.
change at gmail.com. I love
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Good.
So just email me there with your idea, or you didn't even have to email me the idea. You can just email a draft, and then I can let you know if it fits or not, which I've never turned anyone away, actually. So,
Well, that's really encouraging. So for all the budding writers out there, you're going to be writing less than 1,500 words, I recall, right?
yep, less than 1,500, because we want to keep readers interested. And also, it doesn't have to be centered on perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause. So women have written about a range of things. Sometimes it's just focused on midlife, like so the types of things that you talk about, Hillary. I know that I think the last thing you wrote was about going to the monastery, which I knew everyone would love, because what woman hasn't felt like they want to run away to somewhere else? Yeah, and especially now, and I've seen this with like this particular generation. But my point is, it can be about anything. I even have, if any of your listeners are not quite midlife age, I have a Takeover Tuesday that I also do, and that is for millennials or anyone who doesn't identify as a woman necessarily, to talk about what changes they are navigating. So, for example, the latest one of those is about a woman who experienced 2 ectopic pregnancies and how she's basically given up on having a birthing a child now. And I think she's around 36, 37. So navigating the change, yes, for anyone, any idea that you have about any changes whatsoever, I welcome them.
Well, I've learned so much. I mean, wow. So thank you so much, Kathy, for teaching us about how we can be vulnerable, but with healthy boundaries, that we can talk about being in search of a salve, because so many of us are looking for that through this midlife change, and that we can release the stigma of what we're battling in life. And we can just
Absolutely.
talk about it and name it so it doesn't have that power over us anymore. So
Right. Yeah.
thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
All right, here's where I need your help. I want you to help me let women entrepreneurs and business owners who are over 50 know that there is a place where they can come to connect, learn, and get inspired at the Women's Midlife Network. You can share this episode with them today. Whether you're clicking those 3 dots to share the episode or following that little box with the arrow up. Thanks so much. Wow, I learned a lot. How about you? I think writing for Navigating the Change has helped me so much, and I'll tell you, it's a really positive experience. Kathy releases the pressure, and she will do some editing, and she'll check back with you. And it just takes a lot of the fear of how good of a writer am I out of it. Well, I liked learning about ashwagandha and the secret of that being an anxiety game changer in a natural way. I really liked the honest conversation about how we can protect ourselves in writing and also protect others. Really important stuff. Well, I'm looking forward to reading her book, and I can't even imagine being that vulnerable sharing what she is, but she is searching for a salve. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you being an essential part of the Women's Midlife Network. We're connecting women, we're sharing stories and inspiring change, and not just for now, but for decades to come. I am so thankful for you, and I always hope you feel the love. Until next time, this is Hillary Baggett with Hill Talks Podcast. Let's move forward in midlife.